Now eventually you will be able to bypass a bunch of this by utilizing my frames. But since this is an Atelier build, we're going to stick with the Atelier frames. However, we are going to deviate from that here in just a little bit. Because if you look up here on my desk, you will see a few other 389 parts that have been created here. It will be replacing the Atelier parts. And as we go through this build, you'll see more and more of those kinds of parts. There are a couple little low spots in these frames as well. There's one right there. I may have to re-putty. But for now, we're going to move on. If I need to, I'll re-putty that after, right before I go to paint. A lot of guys have a lot more sophisticated ways of doing things than I do. A lot of the big pro builders. I am not one of them, by the way. I'm just a builder like you. I just have a certain attention for detail, hence the 389 project. And a lot of these parts that you're going to be seeing go onto this build, and eventually will come onto your build. Alright, so there you have it for the most part. There is a little low spot there and a little low spot there, which I will have to re-putty at another point. But there you go. So, the next step in the instruction portion of this is to, let's see, finish building out your frames. Okay, and these are the parts that you need to build up your frame. Okay, this is obviously, well, I guess it's going to work off of these cameras now. Well, sorry, I wasn't recording on that. Where we are right now, so we just finished sanding off this frame, filled up the filled up the holes on this frame rail, just like we did on that frame rail. And I will catch this up from the GoPro cameras as well. We have a couple of little low spots that we're going to have to fix a little bit later, but no big deal. So where we are now is in the instructions, you're going to be asked to get your front end, okay? And they will obviously go on about like here. All right, hence what these holes here for and what these holes here are for. However, we're going to put them aside because something's coming up later for that. For now, we're going to work from the back to the front. So you have an end cap, okay, which basically goes here, okay, right on the end of the frame, just like so. They supply you with some standard cross members. Okay, these are very basic, plain, simple cross members. Gets a little dark when I go over to that camera. And then, of course, this is your rear cab support cross member here. Okay. But, as I said, we are not going to be using these parts. These will be the parts that you will have available. But eventually, down the road, you are going to have a few other parts available to you. So we're going to put these away up here, like so. And the only part we're going to keep is this one. All right. Now, normally you really don't need this one either. And if you were building off of my frames, you wouldn't utilize this either or anything like it because it's not on the 389. However, we are going to utilize it for this build because it mounts here as such, and it creates stability in the forward portion of the frame on this Atelier kit. So we are going to leave it at that, and we're going to go ahead and use that. So replacement parts, what are we going to use? Well, we have two different kinds from the 389 project. We have a standard end cap. Okay. This is the Atelier version of it. Okay, straight and all that. Whereas the actual 389 has a cutback section here. Got a few bolts up on the top there, and this is what we're going to be using. And it will fit on this frame rail just like so. All right, it's going to set out just a little bit, but we're going to put that on last. All right, we're going to break out our T-square here. And we're going to square up these rails. I'm going to square them up upside down, I guess. And we are going to start adding parts. So here we go. A couple more 389 parts. There are two types. This type right here is set up for basically the suspension that is on your kit. All right, whereas there will be a stabilizer bar that comes from here to here. On a 389 with Flex Air, that doesn't exist. So we no longer have that, and we've added a couple of extra valves. That is going to set in. I'm going to put this aside for right now. We'll square that up in a little bit. We're going to put this in this last slot right here. You'll notice it is cut so that you do not have to. I'm going to grab a different one here real quick. You do not have to futz with it too awful much. it should just slide right into the frame and right over that little nipple that's inside the frame for your use. However, I'm going to flip it upside down because I want the valves pointing to the back. Okay, so we're going to grab a little bit of glue here. Alright, a little bit of glue on there, set that over there. And we're going to put a little bit of glue on here. Like so. And we are going to set that in right there, just like that. Alright. Then, again, instead of what you would normally use is your standard frame. Well, there's one with a hole in the top. The one with the hole in the top does not go to the pogo stick, okay? It does not go to the pogo stick. It actually goes to your driveline. There's a bearing on the bottom of the driveline between the front driveline and the rear driveline where they connect, and that bearing will slide up into that hole. This one usually goes, I believe this is its spot right here, which is the second set back. If that be the case, that's fine. Ours does not have a hole. Okay. However, if you just cut the little tit off the top of it there, it will then slide right up in there, and it should work exactly the same way as these do. So for ours, we are going to take a 3-valve. Okay, so with our cross members, okay, you'll see they are all pass through, meaning they have the cut here. So if you want to go in and put hoses and electrical and all of those things in, just like with the true 389, you can pass it right through the cross members. The same with the large cross members. I'm not sure if you can see through that, but there is a pass through for them as well. So we're going to take a 3-valve. And I want my valves pointing forward this time, and they're going to go here. Excuse me. Okay, so the next nub forward. Okay, now these are not going to lock into place, so you're going to have to pay a little bit of attention to what you're doing and line that up. Okay, and set that one in. This cross member pack is experimental, and if this works well on this particular build, then this pack will become available on the website once we get the website up and operating. Okay, and we are back. One of our cameras decided that it needed a new battery, and so there it is. Yes, it was that one right there. So if you'll notice, in the instruction sheet here, you can see that this bearing here attaches to that spot, which is nub number 4 here. Cross member 1, cross member 2, cross member 3, cross member 4. All right. In our case, we're going to take just a normal cross member that has no valves. Okay, just a standard pass-through cross member. And it is cut out on the bottom, as you can see here. So you should be able to just slide this part right here right up into this cross member. So let's get a little bit more glue. And determine which end we're putting it in. There we go. Throw a little glue on here. Alright. And right over the top of nub 4. Want things to line up, so we want to get it right over the top of nub 4 right there. Just like so. Now we're going to hold off on nub 5 because that is the location for your cab support. Okay? And that is going to change. With a 389 build, that is going to change drastically. Okay, it's going to set back a little bit. So what we do not want to do is take this cross member, which has been built specifically for the purpose of replacing this cross member. Okay, and this cross member is the standard for the 378 version. The 378, the cab sits approximately 2 inches higher than it does on the 389. So we have done an adjustment to this and lowered it so that the cab will sit properly in its spot. But we do not want to put this on until we're ready to put the cab on. And basically, it will go right there, but it's going to go back just a tad. Just a tad. And I see that I have a little bit of putty right there building up, getting in my way. So we'll cut that out a little bit there. Clean that up a little bit. But yeah, it's going to set back just a little bit further than before, once we're ready to put the cab back on. All right, so now you have a choice. You can go a single valve, another 2 valve, or a 3 valve, or just a plain cross member, whatever you want to do. I'm going to put a 2 valve in. All right, and I am going to turn that cross member so that the valves are pointing towards the others. So basically these valves will be sitting underneath. If you put a deck plate on it or something like that, you won't see them very much. But they're there if you wish to use them in your further detailing And like I said, I have a 1-valve version, a 2-valve version, a 3-valve version. And so it is entirely up to you. And the frame or the Crossmember pack will have more than a sufficient number in there for you to build. Okay. And we're back again. Okay, so here we go. Where are we at? So where we're at now is it's a question of whether you are going to add some aftermarket parts to the rear end of the truck. Are you going to put a drop light bar on it? Are you going to put a raised light bar on it? Are you going to put a a light box on it for the tail end? These are all things that 389 will eventually have. I just haven't made them yet. So, but I will. They'll be coming soon enough. And so the question is, do you want to use the standard end cap? Okay. Or if you're not going to put any of that stuff on there, we have an end cap that also has taillight inserts to it. Okay. So that's the question as to what you are going to do, as to which one of these two that you're going to use. I think for this purpose, we're just going to use the standard end cap without the lights, because I may put a light bar on the back of this truck at some point in time. So we're just going to use the standard end cap for this. Throw a little glue on there. Okay. So the cap, I'm going to turn that away. So I can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to try to inset this just a little bit, as that's actually how they are. They are inset just a tad little bit. And we're going to hold that for a minute while the super glue sets up. A little bit off, a little bit off, a little bit off. Oh, darn it. Darn it. Now, it's kind of important to get this one straight. Although the slot in the other one is going to help here shortly. So real quick, we're going to grab this. We're going to grab this Italieri build here, which is our mock-up for our parts. And we're going to throw a tape across it real quick. And you'll see it falls in right about 35, right about 36 millimeters in width, which is what you want to make sure that you have. 36 millimeters in width. And that's pretty much what everything is built on thus far. Okay. There's our factory one. It's going to go up there. Okay, let that set just a tad bit more. Then we're going to take a little bit more glue. A little more than the last time. And I know for all the experienced model builders out there, I don't have to tell you all this, but it is not necessary to slather glue all over the place. All it does is create problems down the road, both in the area of how it all looks overall, and then how if you have to make adjustments, how hard it is for it to come apart. So our next step, obviously, is to add the other side of the frame. So we're going to lay that down like that. We're going to slide this over the top like that. And we are going to line up that crossmember right there. Slide this into place. And begin the process of setting these frame, setting this. All right. So we're just trying to get this glue to set up right here. So far things look relatively straight. I'm going to put a little pincher on there. Let that set up for me. And so one of the next locations that to deal with is going to be this. Like I said, we're not going to put the front end on it because I got something special coming up. We're not going to put the rear suspension on it because I have something coming up. And this is your cab support. That's not going to go on it just yet. So as soon as we put this piece on, we're pretty much going to be done with this frame for now. So we're going to roll this over like so. We're going to grab this here little dude. Grab us a little bit of glue. And all this does is just set on there. And throw a little bit of glue in there. Make sure it goes to the front or to the back. The tab, it goes to the back of that tab. Okay, so next order of business. We'll set that in there just like that. Roll this around like that. And set it in just like so. Let it come down and meet its normal spot. And that be that. And that will end this version of this video sequence. We have now constructed a frame. We are not, as I said, we are not using a lot of factory parts. This is your factory front end. We have a front end that we are going to be adding to this that has air ride suspension. We are also going to be adding a set of flex air suspension to the back end as well, as you can see, like so. But we're not going to use these parts. These parts are actually for another build. We're going to be using some freshly printed ones. And that will come in the next video series, or the next video session. So anyway, folks, hope you have a beautiful day. I'm Dave with the 389 Project, and we want to say happy modeling.